Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you. It's a beautiful April 24th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I was just looking out my window at the increasing greenery and thanking God for the glory of the natural world. I mean, in these times of human created horror, cruelty, chaos, all that, the natural world, which can of course be chaotic and cruel as well, but it's when it comes back in the spring, it is so glorious. The birds all so active, their songs all over the place. I was just I mean it's hard to be miserable when you can feel the sun on your face and hear a bird sing. I'm just suggesting it. And in that regard, I wanted to share with you something that I saw that just tickled me. You know, we get stuck, understandably, in our own cultures, and we make assumptions that that's the way the rest of the world orders things, organizes their lives as we do ours, and of course that's not true. Um, Even something as I often start the show by giving the date. It's April 24th, you know. Well, in some places, there are still different calendars, although this April 24th one pretty much won out as the world got smaller and you needed some kind of, uniform timekeeping that all would agree on. And is it the Gregorian? Is that what it's called? And does that get us back to popes and stuff and the power of that Catholic Church, which is so much in the news now with the death of that wonderful, wonderful man? Um, so yeah, the Gregorian calendar sort of won out, but as a Jew, I'm of course reminded that Jews have their own calendar, and that's why Hanukkah sometimes is way before Christmas, and sometimes it's after Christmas, as it was this year, which was astonishing. Sometimes, there's just different. Easter and Passover can fall right on, the nose, and then it's because there are different calendars based on different systems. And all of this is to get to the fact that the Japanese, as an extraordinary and ancient culture, had their own way of keeping time, marking time. And I'm not going to tell you much about it because I don't know anything about it, but I came across this one little tidbit, and it just it blew me away. I so loved it. So even though the Japanese did officially, come on board with the rest of the world and adopted the Gregorian calendar, so they would say, "Yeah, all right, it's April 24th, or whatever." And they did that in 1873. But the traditional Japanese calendar is still, there, and it is modeled after, our calendar is solar, and a lot of calendars do a lot more moon stuff, are lunar. And some take both into consideration, lunisolar, and that is, I guess, what the Japanese model is, as is the Chinese. Um, and this ancient calendar, get this, divides the year not into 4 seasons, which is what we do, what we are used to. Much more complex. Not 4 seasons, 72. 72, and in Japan the word is ko, K-O. We'll translate it to micro seasons. They count in their calendar 72 micro seasons, so that a season can be as short as 3 days. And this is so wondrously alien to our way of thinking. Um, and these seasons are based, of course, as ours are, on nature, on the changing of the weather and the impact it has on nature. And so to get 72, we pretty much do, yeah, are things alive, or are they, are they emerging? Are they, whatever, I'm not going to go into it. Listen to this. So when you translate what these micro seasons are, they have names like fish emerge from the ice. That's a season. Now, I'm sure that global warming has played havoc with the Japanese, uh, old calendar as well, because I'm betting that the fish emerge from the ice earlier than they used to. It was mid-February that they had it. Um, Here's another one in mid-June. One of the micro seasons translates to rotten grass becomes fireflies. And I'll just give you one more. In late November, I love this. One of the seasons is called Rainbows Hide. Wow. So anyway, just get us out of our, out of the rut in which we have ordered our days. What else do I have here before we get into? I am so, well, what's the point? I was going to say I'm so angry. Ukraine. I there's no surprise with Ukraine. I mean, it was quite clear in Trump's first administration how much he hated Zelensky and how much he loved Putin. So, I mean, right there, that's the ball game. But if you look at what they are now, they being Trump and Rubio, what they are now insisting Ukraine capitulate to end the war is just a flat. I mean, Russia couldn't have written it better. There's no negotiation here. There's no, and it's a complete reward to Russia for its aggression. A complete award. What a fine negotiator Trump is. He so likes to tell us that. The fact is he's telling Ukraine to surrender, just surrender all the land that Russia has invaded and now occupies. Your land, they get it. Russia gets it. And it's not just land, of course, it's the millions of Ukrainians who live on that land, who consider themselves Ukrainians, and they're to be handed over, according to Trump, to the Russians. It's beyond. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't I have some recollection of Trump during the campaign saying that he will end the war in Ukraine on day one? Yeah, it's that easy. All you need is a master negotiator. He'll come in, he'll take care of it. Well, didn't happen. Didn't happen on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and hasn't happened since, and ain't going to happen in the near future because he doesn't have an effing clue. Because ending wars is not an easy thing. And ending wars requires something that he has no patience for and no expertise at and no appreciation of, and that would be diplomacy. You know, he likes to, he sold millions upon millions of Americans on this absolute BS story that he was a great businessman, that he was a master negotiator. And it didn't even matter that once, you looked into his masterful business history, that it was anything but. He managed to bankrupt so many businesses, it was ridiculous. And his idea of business is brutal. It's somebody's got to walk away with all the marbles, like Russia with the Ukraine war, and somebody's got to be beaten. There's got to be a winner, there's got to be a loser. And I grew up in the home of a man who called himself a businessman and an entrepreneur. He started a new business of his own. And he would talk often, my dad, to us about his business, which, as you can imagine, for a child, was numbingly boring. But in so doing, he would impart his sense of right and wrong. He was an incredibly, wondrously honorable man. And he said more than once, it was a mantra, that the only good end to a negotiation, to a business deal, was when both parties walked away feeling happy, satisfied, good. And contrast that, and he was a successful businessman. contrast that with this vile creep who's now risen to be the most powerful person on earth, who sees things like, my son just keeps reminding me, and he's right. The metaphor is it's world, it's wrestling. It's Vince McMahon wrestling. It's that kind of cartoonish struggle. Bad guys, good guys, no subtlety, brutality, humiliation, grandiosity, all of it. It is wrestling. So Trump is not going to find an end to this war, unless, of course, Ukraine simply rolls over, which is what he's telling them to do. And this is where this guy, he is so unfit to in any way inhabit this position of such power, because his innate childish impatience of wanting what he wants and wanting it now is not the way the world works. The world is complex and chaotic, and never more so than in war and the pursuit of peace. This fool is always in a hurry. It's why chaos is his MO. And it distracts anyone trying to keep an eye on him, enough so that he often sort of slips away from one malefaction, is that a word, to another. And if you look at things like Israel, Gaza, there's a war. Look at things like Ukraine. Look at things like any ongoing war, Sudan. These things often took generations to come to the point they're at, war, and will take generations to get out of. So that administrations before his were dealing with these same issues. He calls them a bunch of losers. They were inept. I'll get it done on day one. Bullshit, as so much of what comes out of his mouth is. He doesn't like doing this stuff. It's complex. It doesn't fall easily into one of his BS comic book narratives. And all his bluster, all his BS, all his lies, it ain't gonna work. This guy with the attention span of a gnat, whose pure impulse, id, ego, this is nobody to do policy, foreign policy, negotiate ends to wars. Now give him something like immigration. That's something he could do, because he can boil that baby down into like a world, wrestling kind of script. Invasion, murderers, rapists, bad guys, caravans. Yeah, that's easy. Ukraine, not so much. Oh, in the same vein. So another judge has said that closing down, throwing all the people out of Voice of America, that ain't kosher. They gotta let them come back. And I happened to see something that I did not know when I was reading a story about it. That Voice of America was created in 1942. Voice of America was created to counter Nazi propaganda. And of course, this fucking fascist who now sits in the Oval Office would not want to be funding an agency that combats fascist propaganda. And the judge in this case, he said to the government, I mean, what the hell are you telling me is your reason for doing this? And you threw all these people out? And here's just a line from his or her, I'm not sure, um, decision. First of all, essentially, the decision found, and this is a shocker, that the Trump administration did not act in a careful or considered way in shutting down the agency. No. And the judge said this: not only is there an absence of reasoned analysis, but there is an absence of any analysis whatsoever. It's hard to fathom a more straightforward display of arbitrary and capricious actions than the government's actions here. Yeah, that sounds familiar. That sounds way too familiar. Okay, let's look again at the Trump administration at work. Don't know if you saw this one, but I did today. Wish I hadn't. This has to do with the Veterans Administration. The head of the VA, there's a lot. I can't even begin to imagine. Can you imagine like being the head of the VA and think of all the stuff on your plate? Think of all the human lives. Think of the decisions, the stuff that you got to deal with. I mean, they're important. Lives depend on it. And it's a huge organization. And the head of the VA, some idiot named Collins, sent out a message to all of the employees of the VA the other day, I guess Tuesday, that they were to keep their eyes out open and report any instances of anti-Christian actions that they saw. Those three letters, WTF, they come to mind. What the fuck? This is one of the most important things uppermost in the mind of the guy who heads the Veterans Administration? I'm sure all our vets will be happy to hear it. Anti-Christian discrimination. What the is he talking about? He's talking about things like displays of Christian images. I guess people who say that certain things violate their Christian belief. I don't know what he's thinking, but this follows similar thinking now seeing itself emerge in other agencies. I give you the laughably misnamed Justice Department under Pam Bondi. She, the same day, on Tuesday, convened a meeting of a cabinet task force that our president has created to search for and eradicate anti-Christian bias in the federal government. What the hell are they talking about? What the hell are they talking about? The federal government, I am quite probably on pretty firm ground in saying, without even knowing, is comprised of a majority of Christians. I'm willing to bet they hold most of the power. The ACLU jumped right on into all of this incomprehensible nonsense and said, everyone has the right to religious freedom, not just the select few who practice this administration's preferred brand of Christianity. And there it is. And never mind this. Here's some facts. Ha! What are those? I know. The most commonly reported hate crimes based on religion are sure as hell not against oh my, they're against Jews. As is so often the case, it's not a majority culture, it's a minority culture. The government's own data, the FBI data, shows that over the last 5 years, there were 4 times as many reported Jewish hate crimes as Christian hate crimes. And here's the other part of that. Christians make up about 2/3 of the population. Jews make up 2% of the population. So if 2% of the population has 4 times as many hate crimes as 2, can't even. And this insane, crazed, fascist, gaslighting administration is turning, again, this is just another case of turning black, white, day, night, up, down. Incredible. And then I saw, oh, here's, you know how I'm loving headlines now, because sometimes it's just all you can handle. But this was a great one. It was a few days ago, and it said this: Americans unsure what to believe about the measles vaccine. Now, what that headline should read is Americans dumb as shit. Forgive my language. Americans unsure what to believe. Now, why would that be? It wouldn't have anything to do with the chief health officer in this clown car of an administration sowing doubt in Americans' minds for years, and now from a bully pulpit. Yeah. It doesn't matter that we're seeing more measles cases and children dying, but Americans are unsure of whether or not they should get their kids vaccinated. And when you believe me, I looked at the article, you look at the numbers, and it's mind blowing. And it's all because of the misinformation, the disinformation that is just rampant, rampant, and amplified by people in authority. And then you look at who's uncertain, and again, it's also not surprising that a gazillion more people who identify as Republicans are more uncertain because they're on the receiving end of this disinformation more so than Democrats. I mean, I don't get it because it's almost as if, and then you look at who's dying. The kids that are dying are from families that vote for Trump. So just like the pandemic, it's almost as though they're trying to kill off their own voters. I don't understand it because the people who don't vote for them, they get vaccinated and their kids get vaccinated. So why would it be a winning strategy to kill off your own base? Somebody's got to explain that to me. I no, I don't get it. Oh, and speaking of, okay, this gets us to something I shied away from talking about because it's just too maddening, and that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Um, and his, I mean, he will do damage. And here's the thing, and I've had people say to me, but you know, I agree with his, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, me too. I agree with the going after the dyes and all that additive crap. I do. He's right about that. Go for it. But the craziness and the vaccine craziness and the autism craziness and the just disordered thinking. What he said the other day, when I saw it, what he said about children with autism, I was dumbfounded. Because, I mean, who of us doesn't know a kid with autism now? It is, yeah, there's a lot of it around. And I tend to agree with Kennedy that my gut tells me a lot of it is probably has something to do with environmental crap, of us poisoning the environment in which we and our children are living. So I don't know how that plays out with also genetic predisposition and other stuff. I don't have a clue. Um, but he's got a clue. He thinks he knows. And he flat out said in this the same speech, the same news conference or whatever it was where he said these things. He said that the studying of genetic causes of autism is a dead end, which all of the studies show is not true. And then he said, it's a dead end because we know it's environmental exposure. And here's the thing about when you dumb down an entire population. These people don't allow more than one thing to be true at any time. You here's my bet is there's genetic components, there's environmental components, and when you have this kind of simplistic bumper sticker tunnel vision that Trump and the right wing have always trafficked in, and it's an easy way to win the hearts and minds of the people. Because, well, human nature likes easy more than complex. And then Kennedy said of these children, and this is the quote, and I remember thinking, my God, if my child had autism, I would want to kill him. Here's what he said. You know it. Autism destroys families. But more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, our children. These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. Now, since he said that, I've read many things, and I'm sure you have too, written by either autistic people or parents of, or people who know, or medical experts, and every single one of those statements is not true. They date, they marry, they play baseball, they hold jobs, they pay taxes, they go to the toilet unassisted, they write poems. And then, of course, having been totally called out on it, he does acknowledge, well, I was talking about the ones who are really in bad shape. And it turns out the ones he's talking about constitute maybe about 25% of all those diagnosed with autism. Which is to say that this blanket statement he made was untrue of the vast majority of people with autism. And someone pointed this out today. I happened to read this. Wow. And she said that he started this litany with paying taxes and having jobs. That implies that those who are not able to be gainfully employed are somehow lesser citizens. He went into it by saying it destroys our greatest resource. They can't hold jobs. So somehow they then are useless. They don't pay taxes, they don't hold jobs. And she said anyone who knows the history knows that this sounds exactly like what eugenicists said about what they called the feeble-minded. It gave rise to the eugenics movement. The idea that people with disabilities are tax burdens and therefore should not exist. And then there was this. There was a famous case in 1915. It was the baby Bollinger case. It was a little boy born in Chicago who the doctor saw had physical defects and would not treat, and the baby died. And media went nuts over this story. Everyone heard about it. And the doctor didn't back down, he doubled down. And he went on a media campaign. Yeah, even in 1915. His name was Harry Hazelden. He went on a media campaign to promote what we now call eugenic euthanasia. He was not ashamed of it, and millions of Americans agreed with it. Newspaper editorial boards agreed with it. And do you know who agreed with it? That when I first learned of this years ago, I couldn't believe it. I still find it mind-blowing. But one of his devotees, prominent supporters of this doctor, was Helen Keller. Helen Keller. And she wrote in his defense of letting the kid die. This is Helen Keller's words. Our puny sentimentalism has caused us to forget that a human life is sacred only when it may be of some use to itself and the world. The world is already flooded with unhappy, unhealthy, mentally unsound persons that should never have been born. Oh my God. Where do you even get what? I mean, see, here's why I lose my mind. This is obviously a brilliant woman, Helen Keller. Brilliant. Born deaf, born blind. Someone who clearly, under eugenic euthanasia, would have been killed at birth. And then just one other thing. I saw that a poet who is herself autistic, she obviously was most enraged by his, they will never write a poem. And she is a published poet. And she said this, her name is Marianne Eloise. She said, I would love to read RFK's poetry if he would share it. I'm not familiar with his work. You know, and I don't know about autistic baseball players, but I know autistic kids play baseball, and I also just read this fascinating story about an NFL, I think it's an NFL player who has really heavy duty, what is that called? Repetitive behavior. Why am I blanking? HD, yeah, whatever, that. And how he has got to go through all of these a million little things before I think is he a kicker or a punter? I don't know, but he is, yeah, he's fights this mental illness, and he's an NFL player. So I actually this morning I was reading this again, and I just Googled autistic poets because I'm sure Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I've never written a poem. Well, I've written doggerel, roses are red, violets are blue. But I couldn't write a poem, and I have trouble even understanding a lot of poems. I'm not a I they I can tell they're beautiful, but I often, I like to read out loud, and I'm not sure where to pause, especially in a kind of free verse thing. And maybe if I, take time and really look at it again and again and again, I would know. But I came upon this morning, right before the show started, and it's one of those free form kind of things, but it's written by a young man who is very autistic. He's nonverbal and has a number of pretty serious issues. And he wrote this, and his name is Adam Wolfond, and I beg his forgiveness in that I've only scanned it once before, and this will be my first effort to read it out loud, and I'm not sure again where to pause and where not to, but it was beautiful, and it's short, and I want to share it with you. This puts the lie to RFK Jr. They'll never write a poem. The eager, clattering singing wastes my listening, and, and I am over ready to run breathing. The ways the sticks invite my wanting. I want to think in feeling ways. The talking thinks in moving ways. The sticks invite thinking, answering their questions. The eager clattering, singing. Oh, the eager clattering singing does always interrupt the sailing play. The play is the questions. The sailing is the tears. I know the tears will overfill, ready to become a thinking and feeling. I am ready to become a loving man. Now, again, I did not read that well, but anyone who hears that rush of words that this nonverbal autistic man pulled together would not write him off as a burden on society. Milton, I just saw what you wrote. This goes back to, I guess, the VA and the Trump administration ferreting out anti Christian prejudice, rampant anti Christian. Milton writes, the goal here is to conflate Christian with this administration. Hence, any verbiage, protest, or legal action against the administration can then be deemed anti-Christian. Well, yeah, there's something to that because he quite clearly, this most unchristian of men. You couldn't come up with more of an avatar of unchristianity in every way than Donald J. Trump. Uh, it'd be, I dare you. But again, more than him, it's like I say it's not he that terrifies me. It's the 80 plus million Americans who voted for him, who support him. They're the ones who terrify me. And it's the so-called Christians. And I call them so-called because there is no way that Jesus Christ would see the acts of this administration and the people who support it as Christian. I don't care if they're pastors. I don't care if they have mega churches. I don't care if they spout Bible verses. They are not Christian because the very basis of Christianity, of almost any religion, is love. It ain't hate. What was that famous, where the Hebrew Hillel was asked if he could sum up Judaism, the teaching, while standing on one foot? I got this all wrong, don't I? Was it Hillel? Anyway, and I don't even remember exactly what his answer was, but it boils down to the golden rule. And there's no way that Trumpism, with its warm embrace of cruelty, could be considered Christian in any way. And the dear Pope Francis said so. Clearly, he defined what a Christian would do with immigrants, with refugees, with the least of us. And it was nothing that Donald Trump is doing. One other thing I have before I leave you, and this I came upon, and I was afraid to even read the article because I think it was in the New York Times today. I'm not remembering where I read it, which is what I seem to say all the time. And it's about earworms. And I am prone to earworms, a tune that gets, or a lyric. It can just be the words. It can be lyrics for me, or it can be a tune, or both, that get in your head, and damn, you cannot get them out. And invariably, for me, they're ones that I don't like. It's some stupid I tell you, a lot of the drug commercials have. I see. I don't even want to start thinking about this because if I say one, it'll do it to me. So I'm gonna try to be general here, which is why when I saw the article, I thought I don't even want to see this because if they start, I don't want to read about this because they're gonna. But it was how to get rid of an earworm, and I thought, go for it, just jump in there, and there are two things. I'm just giving you the two things they came up with. First of all, I mean, quite clearly, they say that, earworms generally are short. It's sort of like, Republican explanations for things. It's bumper sticker crap. It's quick. It's usually more high energy. It's rarely like a funeral dirge. It tends to be upbeat and simple because that's what sticks in our simple little heads. And to, I mean, I've had them last for days. Uh, I don't even want to talk about this. But anyway, so researchers say that the most common way that people are able to get rid of an earworm is to listen to another song or think or sing to yourself another song. Seems too easy to be true, but the research does show that thinking of or listening to another song can dislodge the one that's stuck in our head. And that's because it's really hard to have two songs in your head at the same time because they are elbowing each other to use the same cognitive resources and space in our brains. And man, I'm sure the earworm had put up quite a fight, but maybe if you just keep listening to something else over and over and over, it would eventually give way. And but here's the trick. Here's a mistake you can make. You don't want another earworm, so you need to find a song that um, while it will displace the earworm, will not itself become an earworm. Now, researchers in England have found that a good song, because it doesn't become an earworm, but you can just keep repeating it over and over to yourself, is the national anthem, God Save the Queen. It's hardly a jumpy little ditty. God save Anyway, it says, My country, 'tis of thee, is essentially the same melody. Is it? My country, 'tis of thee. It is. Sweet land of liberty. It is. So try that. My country, 'tis of thee. And the lyrics don't hold anymore. Sweet land of liberty. Sweet land of deportations and people disappearing off the streets. Um, and here's the other one that I really found bizarre. One unlikely trick, which researchers say shows the most promise of getting rid of an earworm, is chewing gum. Don't ask me. It says here chewing gum co-ops and uses the same muscles and movement planning centers in the brain. What? So it dampens earworms. Researchers warn against chewing the gum vigorously, or you may find yourself chewing to the beat of your earworm. Okay, so just telling you. My country, 'tis of thee, or chewing gum. And speaking of chewing gum, an earworm I used to have back in the day was double your flavor, double your fun with gum. God. Listen, you guys, have a good one. Rust Belt says, thanks a lot. Now my country 'tis of thee is my earworm. Nah, it's just not earworm material. You'll get rid of it.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.